Hey guys, Mapletail here. Today's my reaction to the latest release in the Warrior Cat series, the start of Arc 9's Changing Skies, The Elder's Quest. So spoiler warning for the entire book. And we're drawing a bunch of cats from the book. Let's get into it. As usual, this isn't a formal review, more just my thoughts chapter by chapter of anything that stood out to me. And we're jumping right into chapter 4 as I read and reviewed the first 3 chapters when the preview dropped. Here we go. We start off with a Tawny Pelt POV. Tigerstar doesn't believe the two-leg problems on SkyClan's land is a problem, and thinks they're just using it as an excuse to steal prey. And he refuses to listen to his mother's warnings of the two legs that drove the clans out of the old forest, fearing it could happen again. So he's being as annoying as usual. Tawny Pelt patrols with her grandson Birchfeather. They find the scent of a sole SkyClan cat, and Birchfeather reveals he's been meeting up in secret with his crush, Ridgeglow, scared of what Tigerstar might say. To which Tawny Pelt reminds him that his mother used to be a ThunderClan cat, so... That said, actually, considering how hostile Tigerstar has been feeling towards SkyClan this chapter, this may spell trouble. And when Birchfeather reveals his intentions to join SkyClan instead of having Ridgeglow join ShadowClan, things go badly very fast. Tigerstar going on about loyalty and the Warrior Code is so silly though. This is accepted by the Warrior Code now, and he is a massive hypocrite. I understand that he and Dovewing are protective of their son after losing his brother so young, but come on now. This is literally what they did, with less sneaking around. Also, can I just say how nice it is to have a Tom leaving his clan for his mate? It is so often the other way around, so this was very nice to see. Let's see if things are going any better for Leafstar. They are not. She dreams of the old SkyClan once more, and upon waking we learn that when she went to the moon pool the other night, no SkyClan cats had come to her. And we also learn that two legs have left marks around the moon pool. Oh no. At the gathering, Leafstar asks if SkyClan can hunt prey that they accidentally chase onto their neighbors' territories due to the stream being poisoned by two legs. Tigerstar is a massive jerk about it, and only calms down when Squirrelstar says that she's also noticed sick prey near SkyClan. But both leaders refuse, which, I get it, but she really isn't asking for much. Maybe Birchfeather will pull a Firestar and sneak them some prey. But Icestar to the rescue. She offers to send warriors to teach SkyClan to hunt fish in the lake. Hell yeah. Tawny Pelt tries to bring up her concerns about the two legs, but Tigerstar shuts her down, saying that they are nowhere near the clans. So we're just gonna ignore everything Leafstar just said, huh? Cool. Even when she shares what she saw at the moon pool, Tigerstar doesn't care, even a little bit. So dumb. I can't wait for this to come back to bite him. And aside from, Crowfeather, no one seems worried. But when he speaks up, at least they agree to have a look. I swear these gathering chapters get more frustrating every book. Maybe Moonpaw is doing better than the other two. But considering how nervous she looked during the gathering, I doubt it. The voice in her head is distracting her for most of the gathering, and made it so that she had just about as good time as I did. She subtly tries to ask Alderheart for advice, but he's pretty busy and dismissive towards her. When Moonpaw asks a bit more directly, you can see alarm bells going off in Alderheart, as questions about hearing a voice obviously sounds a lot like what happened with Shadowsight and Ashfur at first glance. Though this feels different to me. Or maybe that's just wishful thinking, as I hope the voice isn't an evil being, and something a little more interesting and less concerning. Alderheart shuts down the conversation and tells Moonpaw not to worry about such things, not realizing that Moonpaw is talking about herself and has to worry about it. Sunbeam overhears and misreads the interest in Moonpaw's voice and wonders if Moonpaw would be better off as a medicine cat. Moonpaw is already beginning to doubt her choice, wanting to understand why she's different. Which that part I understand. But they should just be able to help her regardless of her role. If only people weren't being so weird about hearing a voice, maybe Moonpaw would feel a little more comfortable asking for that help. Yes, things with Shadowsight were bad, but that doesn't mean that this is that. And even if it is, then all the more reason to give her that support. Sunbeam takes it upon herself to tell the medicine cats that she thinks Moonpaw should join them. Jayfeather is still skeptical, but Alderheart is coming around to the idea. Great. we return to Tawny Pelt. This whole book is going to be everyone not listening to our she-cat protagonists, isn't it? A patrol of 1 cat per clan is sent to see what the Two Legs are up to. The cats include Leafstar, Crowfeather, Owlnose, and randomly Bayshine. At least it's mostly cats that will take whatever is happening seriously. They find a massive blue wall with a small gap for the stream, a tarped off area. They find a higher vantage point and see what lays beyond it. The beginnings of a massive 2-legged structure, surrounded by monsters, earth churned up and trees cut down to make way for the construction. Tawny Pelt and Crowfeather are very clearly worried about it, noting how similar it feels to when the clans were driven out of the old forest. I can't help but agree, especially with whatever is happening at the moon pool. On top of all that, it's unclear exactly what is poisoning the stream. Leafstar's POV is next. I forget there's still a badger to deal with, which Leafstar decides to take into her own paws. The clan is scared and reluctant to help, looking to Hawkwing, but receiving nothing but silence as he defers to Leafstar. I honestly agree with Leafstar. The badger is one of the only problems that they can deal with right now. And they should. I feel like we're supposed to think Leafstar is being unreasonable in this scene, but like she said, the clan isn't starving yet. There's no reason a large patrol shouldn't be able to drive out a single badger before it becomes a much bigger problem. But there wasn't 1 badger. There were 3. JK, only 2. And Starling Paw, who Leafstar nearly attacks by mistake until Kite Scratch stops her. The battle goes horribly, the cat's barely escaping and not without terrible injuries, especially to Kite Scratch, after being grabbed by a badger by his neck. He soon succumbs to his wounds, Leafstar blaming Starling Paw for his own father's death, saying this never would have happened if he hadn't shown up and distracted her. She tries to take back her cruel words, but I'm sure Starling Paw will never forget them. Moonpaw. She's begun her medicine cat training, well, not officially enough to take her to the moon pool tonight. Much to her disappointment. She wanted to go in hopes that she would learn more about the voice in her head. Fair enough. Speaking of, the voice has been much quieter the last few days. Thoughts of memorizing herbs taking up all the space in her head. Enough so that Moonpaw wonders if she imagined the whole thing. Yeah, I don't think so. Moonpaw dreams that night. Cats wailing, the view of the lake shattering. It feels like an omen of the lake territory's destruction to me. But upon waking, the yowling doesn't stop. Cherryfall and Lionblaze stumble into camp, bleeding. What? Moonpaw panics, as Jayfeather and Alderheart are still at the moon pool. Will helping them fall to her? Surely a cat like Brightheart could step in to assist instead? But the medicine cats return just in time. It sounds like a fox attacked the 2 warriors. Moonpaw takes initiative and chews up Horsetail for Cherryfall's wounds, much to Jayfeather's surprise and approval. It sounds like the fox came from SkyClan's land. Wow, they cannot catch a break. Everything turned out okay though, but that night, the voice returned, warning Moonpaw that she was walking the wrong path. It's kind of ironic that Moonpaw thinks that only she, not the voice or anyone else, would decide what path would be right for her, when this isn't the path she wanted, and only chose it due to other cats and in hopes of learning about the voice. I'm not sure where Moonpaw's story will go from here, but I hope she truly does get to choose for herself, and I think this would have been better and more interesting if Moonpaw wanted to be Medicine Cat from the start, and it was just the voice speaking out against it. It would have been such a nice change of pace from ThunderClan's constant trend of making medicine cats who don't want to be. Tawny Pelt. Birchfeather leaves for SkyClan today, and everyone is saying bye to him, except his parents, who refuse to even leave their den to see him off. Tawny Pelt talked some sense into them, but they can only offer a formal and cold farewell in their pain. Pain that Birchfeather doesn't understand. At least Tawny Pelt is there for them, and walks with him to the border. I understand why Tigerstar and Dovewing are having a hard time, but I still think they're being ridiculous and unfair to their son. I am sad though that Tawny Pelt is losing one of her best relationships in ShadowClan, when it feels like she could really use it. The next day, the mixed clan patrol takes another trip to the 2-leg structure, as well as to the moon pool, now that the medicine cats have seen it and are worried. Pale Sky takes Leafstar's place this time. The young cats think this is a complete waste of time, which is super dumb. It's obviously not. And now the older cats are outnumbered. They start at the moon pool, and it's bad. Full of two-leg stuff and markings, chunks of the path already carved out, and worst of all, what our Tawny Pelt describes as weird rocks with pelts, full of grey powder. Please tell me this isn't cement for filling in the moon pool. I'm truly shocked by how little the younger warriors care. It was only a couple arcs back when the moon pool froze over, and the clan's connection to StarClan was completely severed. This is obviously just as bad, if not worse, so where's their sense of urgency? They are just as bad at the other two-leg site, leaving literally immediately, Pale Sky taking one glance and then dipping, forgetting the plan to figure out what was poisoning the stream in her clan. So frustrating. I hate to be all young cats these days, but oh my god. Thankfully, Tawny Pelt and Crowfeather stick around to have a closer look. After a run-in with a dog, they do just that. In the excitement of their escape from danger, Tawny Pelt feels something for Crowfeather. Come on. Please don't ruin this fun duo by giving Crowfeather a fourth love interest in Tawny Pelt of all cats. I am all for Tawny Pelt finding some kind of love later in life, but why him? Oh my god, why? I'd much rather read more about her relationship with her grandson than yet another forced romance. At the very least, the two find the source of the poisoned stream. Mountains of two-leg trash. Yeah, that sounds about right. We return to Leafstar. I hope she chews Pale Sky out for leaving early. We see Kite Scratch's heartbreaking vigil. Leafstar falls asleep during it, dreaming of the old Sky Clan, and the worst possible cat notices. Reedclaw, Kite Scratch's mother. Harry Brook tries to comfort Leafstar, and she admits that she's considering stepping down. Reedclaw has similar ideas as she calls the clan together to depose Leafstar. I have mixed feelings. I don't think Leafstar needs to be replaced, but I also can't fault Reedclaw in her grief. The vote will take place in the morning, which explains why Pale Sky was sent in her place. I figured she was just tired from the attack. I was surprised at just how much support Reedclaw had. I was actually getting worried that this would be our very first proper voting out of a leader, which we do need to see at some point. It comes down to one vote, Followfern, who sides with Leafstar. I can only hope she regains the trust of the rest of her clan. Let's check back on Moonpaw. It's already time for the next Medicine Cat meeting, and this time Moonpaw is allowed to come with. Though it still sounds like she's not an official Medicine Cat apprentice. It's interesting to me that the voice is so quiet during the days now. If it wants Moonpaw to not be a Medicine Cat, one would think that distracting her like it had during her warrior training would be far more effective. At the meeting, we see Frostdawn. Oh, how I've missed her. The Medicine Cats outside of Fidget Flake are not terribly concerned about all the two-leg stuff at the moon pool, which feels even odder than the warriors not caring about everything happening. Moonpaw gets to try touching her nose to the water, but sees no StarClan cat. Only the orange tabby she hears in her head. The tabby looked poised to attack, malevolence in their eyes. Not a good sign. Moonpaw slashes at the water to rid herself of the vision, and ends up falling in. She confides with her mentors afterwards about seeing a cat, but is vague, as per usual. The voice later tells Moonpaw that it was just saying hello, but I'm not convinced. Tawny Pelt hears all about the misadventure from Puddleshine. Tigerstar is incessantly infuriating as he brushes off more of Tawny Pelt's worries about the moon pool and SkyClan's stream. One would think he might care a little bit more now that his son lives there, but alas. He basically just calls her hysterical, and that's that. Even worse, when Tawny Pelt says she's going to see if she can visit Birchfeather, Tigerstar steamrolls whatever message Dovewing seemed to want to pass on to her son, and says they are showing tough love and won't be interacting with Birchfeather while he's trying to become a SkyClan cat. That isn't tough love. That isn't love at all. That's just cruel. Birchfeather tells Tawny Pelt of the attempt to depose Leafstar, which is stalling his trials. Tawny Pelt also spends far too much time of this chapter mooning over Crowfeather. To quote her, hasn't Crowfeather already had his share of doomed romances from cats from other clans? Yes, Tawny Pelt! He sure has. Unless for the bit, they also give him a SkyClan mate next to complete the set, because at that point, it's hilarious. Back with Leafstar, Tree talks to her and tries to make a plan to ease the tension between her and Reedclaw. They're interrupted by warriors fighting over prey, and it ends up going to Gravelnose for his mate Renflight, who is apparently pregnant despite looking very skinny. A lie, or has the lack of prey really gotten so bad? But Frecklewish confirms it. There are still fish available, to which most of SkyClan turn their noses up about. So silly that they'd rather starve than eat a fish. We do get a nice moment of Leafstar taking time to properly apologize to Starlingpaw though, and Hawkwing leading a successful patrol against the Badgers. With Hawkwing taking charge with a plan in the patrol, the thought that he's been trying to undermine Leafstar invades her mind. I don't buy it though, he's been nothing but loyal to her. She goes off to hunt alone to try to win back her clan, but it could not go worse, as she falls into a ravine, hitting her head hard, and dying. As she loses a life, Echo Song warns her that she needs to take care of herself, and that there are dark times ahead. Leafstar can't doubt herself now, it'll only make it easier for them. It takes SkyClan 3 days to find her and bring her home. Relief, but also hostility, clear on their faces. Back with Moonpaw, the day after the Mezencat meeting. We're kind of jumping around in time this book a bit, huh? Some chapters seem to take place slightly behind the previous one. Moonpaw is enjoying Mezencat life, but knows the voice is right. She isn't seeing visions. She isn't a Mezencat. But some Mezencats just don't, like Mothwing and Shadowsight. That shouldn't stop her if this is the life she truly wants. Especially with 2 other cats in the clan who do receive visions. And I feel like this focus on visions being the prerequisite is fairly new. I feel like plenty of former Mezencats started off because of their want to be healers and to help their clan in a different way. And the connection to StarClan came later, if ever for a couple cats. Jayfeather sees this inner turmoil in Moonpaw, and he comes right out and asks if anyone has ever told her about Ashfur. He tells her the story, and asks if that's what she is experiencing. She lies out of fear. I wish she hadn't. I'm sure Jayfeather would help her if she could just tell him exactly what she's experiencing. Moonpaw decides to get answers alone, returning to the Moonpool to talk to the Orange Tabby. She demands to know who they really are. The Tabby explains that they are one and the same, 2 halves of one whole. They live in a world that few can see, but are tied to Moonpaw. It's almost giving me the vibe of the video game Beyond Two Souls, if you're at all familiar with that. To prove they are real, the Orange Cat explains that they can see slips in time. Not quite the future, but close enough. They tell her that tomorrow the sun will disappear, but will be found shining in a hollow tree. Getting eclipse flashbacks right now. But the next day the sun shines on, making Moonpaw believe that the voice wasn't real after all, that she could just go back to being a warrior apprentice. I am so confused as to what Moonpaw actually wants. She seems pretty happy as a Mezencat, but also feels like she's living a lie, and really wanted to be a warrior, but couldn't focus because of the voice. If the voice and visions weren't part of the equation, what would she choose her life to look like? She says she loves part of her duties, the herbs and the healing, but doesn't believe she has a connection to StarClan, so that's it. It is also still so odd that if the voice is telling the truth, it won't get what it wants, as Moonpaw will likely remain a Mezencat, something she also just admitted her heart wasn't in. Anyways, Moonpaw is awoken by the sound of Myrtle Bloom screeching for her kits, who are missing, one of which is named Sunkit. Okay, I see what you're doing here. Also, classic warriors, Shelfer is mistakenly called the father of the kits here. Now, that would be dramatic if true, considering his mate Fernstripe just left WindClan for him. 2 of the kits are found in the forest, but not Sunkit. Moonpaw puts it together and heads for the hollow tree near the Thunderpath. She finds Sunkit right where the Tabby said he'd be, and brings him home. I can't help but wonder if the Orange Tabby really saw the future, or if they somehow led Sunkit out of camp, as he refuses to explain why he left, and his siblings seemed confused about it. When Sunkit finally tells what happened, my worries were confirmed. He said he thought he saw Moonpaw lead him out of camp. Moonpaw has the same worries, wondering if she somehow walked in her sleep, or if Sunkit had seen the orange cat. I'm not really sure what to think at this point. So back to Tawny Pelt. She dreams of Rowan Claw. He tells her to trust herself, and gives his blessing to go after Crowfeather. Great. I love this romance that has come completely out of nowhere for no reason. On a patrol by the SkyClan border, Ridgeglow chases a squirrel right into Tawny Pelt's paws. While Tawny Pelt is technically in the right, I understand why Ridgeglow ends up attacking her over the prey. SkyClan is doing very poorly. Even more so when Birchfeather appears and we learn that this was one of his tasks, to find any prey for SkyClan. Tawny Pelt does show them a kindness though, chasing a rabbit to the border, hearing the pair catch it in the distance. Unfortunately, Yarrowleaf saw and went straight to Tigerstar, who I'm sure will be a huge baby about it. He chews her out and punishes her with guard duty, but not before Tawny Pelt calls him out on his treatment of Birchfeather. Good on her. Back with Leafstar, she dreams of the old SkyClan for like the 5th time this book, before her leadership is again called into question, a vote that will surely not go her way for a second time. Leafstar defends herself pretty well, but Needleclaw points out that it was Hawkwing who got rid of the badgers, and that while Leafstar was recovering, the fresh kill pile was getting bigger by the day, and the camp had never looked better with everyone working together. Which, aside from the first point, doesn't make any sense to me. Deputies organize all the hunting and fixing up the camp stuff anyways. Why is it suddenly all better? Not to mention Hawkwing's patrol only went well because they knew the full situation, that there were multiple badgers. A few cats stand up for Leafstar, including Hawkwing and Rootspring, but it's nowhere near enough. SkyClan votes to depose Leafstar. All that's left is to see if all the other leaders agree at the gathering that very night. Surely they won't. But then what was the point of all this? The leaders argue amongst themselves after hearing what Reclaw had to say. It was clear they weren't going to come to agreement, especially with Squirrelstar, who would never do something like that to Leafstar. But Leafstar didn't want to keep her leadership that way, nor leave it up to the other clans to decide. So, she stepped down as leader of SkyClan after all this time. I can't believe we've come to this. Of all the leaders to be the first to be deposed, why did it have to be her? Moonpaw. She agonizes over what Sunkit said he saw, and whether to be a medicine cat or a warrior, but she decides her heart is no longer in her current role, and that it isn't helping as she hoped. So she asks Sunbeam to train her once more. I'll honestly miss her interactions with Jayfeather, but I'm happy to get a bit of Sunbeam too. Tawny Pelt. On guard duty, she drifts between thoughts, and she sees some kind of vision, or maybe just falls asleep. Her clanmates are at her side, crossing an unfamiliar, bleak terrain, the old forest behind her, and the lake up ahead. A huge monster tearing up a tree, the screams of an unseen kit. She wakes up and goes to check out the two-leg structure. She felt as though the Great Journey and the two-leg den were connected somehow, and the monster was binding them together. I don't really know what she's on about, but consider me curious. She runs into Birchfeather, who accompanies her after hearing her dream. Tawny Pelt falls and traps herself, realizing the cat that was in trouble from her dream was her. Back with Moonpaw. She hunts with the other apprentices and mentors, and manages to catch a rabbit. But she also feels a brush on her cheek, a yank on her tail, but sees no one. Only the voice telling her to play with them, seeming to be able to touch her now. Moonpaw seems to think she can just ignore the voice forever, but clearly it's getting stronger, and probably a horrible idea to keep ignoring it and keeping it a secret. Tawny Pelt. Are we just done with Leafstar POVs now? Maybe we'll get one more final chapter with her? Oh my god, wait. Tawny Pelt is dead? How? She sees StarClan and all her dead loved ones, but Bluestar tells her this isn't her time, and quote, then the end of an era approaches, and that Tawny Pelt must be the one to lead the clans out of the moonless dark and onto a new path, and that she must not lose her way on the journey, even after the stars have faded away. And lastly, to beware of the two-faced cat with one paw in each world. Ominous as hell. I can understand that we're probably headed to a new territory, and that Moonpaw and the voice will pose a threat of some kind. But the rest is a mystery to me. She awakens in SkyClan camp, having been found buried in the pit she'd fallen into, not breathing, until the medicine cats intervened. She also thinks about Crowfeather again, of all the times. Our final chapter. Moonpaw. She feels cold pressing on her, a breath in her ear, a voice in her head. It's finally enough. She breaks down and tells her parents everything. Okay, more or less. Mostly less. They look sad. And they ask if the cat she sees is an orange tabby. What? They reveal that Moonpaw had been born with a sister, one that died shortly after birth. I was so sure that the Aarons were going for something with chimerism, cells joining together in the womb, but the voice was her own cat, a cat who had been born even, if for a very short time. So Moonpaw's half-tabby face is just total coincidence then? But her parents are wrong about one thing. The voice is not simply a StarClan cat. StarClan kits who died as kits stay kits. This cat feels more like a spirit of another sort. One who is growing with Moonpaw. At least as far as I can tell. I don't remember her being described as a tiny kitten. Moonpaw confronts her sister, telling her that she has to move on to StarClan. Her sister does not take it well. Her final words truly haunting. Quote, "If you won't let me be with you in your world, you will be with me in mine." End quote. Thanks for watching. Wow, that was a lot to process. I am grateful that the voice seems to be like she's gonna be her own character. A cat who died far too young, without a chance at her own life. One who is angry at being ignored by the only cat she's ever been able to communicate with. More of a... well, evil feels like way too strong a word right now, but more of an evil spirit instead of one of the more problematic ways this could have gone, like making her an evil altar for Moonpaw, or a sibling who never made it past the stage of being a cell or two, but still having a fully formed spirit somehow. Though I am curious how they are one and the same, as the voice says. We'll still have to see how this plays out. They could still pull some kind of fast one on us. I had been thinking her story was pretty unconnected to everything else happening, but Blue Star's warning made it clear that that is simply not the case. I loved reading through Tawny Pelt and Leaf Star, though I am quite sad at how much respect has been lost for them both from their clanmates. And I think the idea of Tawny Pelt and Crowfeather getting together is a choice. But Tawny Pelt and Birchfeather are so lovely, and I really want to see more of them hanging out. Overall, I quite enjoyed this book, and I think it's a relatively strong start to the arc, and set up a lot of interesting ideas for the future. Let me know what you thought of it if you've given it a read, and I'll see you next Thursday.